Yeah! Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Comic Tropes After Dark. This is the weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. We are going to talk about so much comic book news tonight. We are going to review some very interesting comics, a few cool things from the big two, but also some of the other publishers had some really interesting books this week. Some top creators working in some books this week. Peach Momoko's latest. That'll be interesting to talk about. But definitely have a lot of news. And then later, I'm going to do news. I'm going to do reviews. And then I'm going to draw and update you on all sorts of stuff that's happening with the channels. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Good. Glad people like the shirt. A lot of my family and friends think I'm going to get hurt if I wear it in public, but I don't know. It's like we all got to do our part, right? Anyway, you know what? Let's start off. You guys have earned this. A double salute. Yeah, I think it's time that you got one. Let me also start up the banner, the little ticker, so that you got an idea of what kind of topics are coming up. I'll just leave that on loop. But thank you, Dr. Shubil. Appreciate that support right at the beginning. That's really nice to start with. And it's going to be a big show. So I'm just going to get right into the news of the week, and we'll all get talking back and forth, the live chat, or I'll also take a look at the comments if you're reading this on demand throughout the week. Let's take a look at what we've got for news.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
Let's see. My ribs are going to hurt from the hugs and back slaps. That's not why we do things, but yeah. There's a massive ICE detention facility near us, unfortunately, in the Tacoma, Washington area. And it was actually where, who's that cartoonist from England that got put in the detention center? Rebecca Burke, I want to say. She was there for like about 3 weeks. She's making a comic about her detention time. Crazy. Hey, thank you so much, Kevin. That's really kind of you. Appreciate the support. Appreciate it. But we've got a bunch of fun comic news to talk about this week, all sorts of stuff. And I'll start with this. Jubilee. Jubilee was an awesome character when she debuted in the pages of the Claremont, Jim Lee, X-Men. You know, just this mall brat that thought that the X-ladies looked cool and followed them to Australia. Became a great sidekick to Wolverine, and I think she like gets used here and there. Like people are like, "Oh, okay, you know, she'll be on a Generation X," and then they sort of forget about her, and they're like, "Okay, we'll turn her into a vampire because nobody's done anything with her in a while." But anyway, they're doing something here. April is Asian American and Pacific Islander Month here in the United States, so to celebrate that, Marvel's releasing a Jubilee one-shot for that. Which I think makes sense. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the kindness. Here's a sugar-free Mountain Dew Baja Blast. For now, I'm having a delicious kohi. Kohi o namimashou. Kohi o namimashou. Oh. All right, back to the news. The comic is going to be written by Gene Luen Yang. I really like what he's doing in Ninja Turtles. Of course, American Born Chinese is a fantastic comic that you should definitely read if you haven't before. Artwork inside by Michael YG. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's initials. I've never heard it pronounced out loud. Cover here by Fan Yang. So obviously getting a bunch of Asian creators to work on it, which I think makes sense. And I think it's fun when you do that as a one shot. Mix it up and give it to people that aren't doing it on the regular. And here's the premise, according to Marvel. The saga kicks off when Jubilee's long-lost cousin shows up at the X-Men's doorstep with mutant powers of her own, of his own, and a mission that will force Jubilee to explore her Chinese heritage and family history in a profound way. Could be interesting. Could be. We'll see. Wait, oh man, I'll take your word on that, but I have no idea. No idea. Wow. All right, what else? I've got a few Marvel items at the top. We already knew, for instance, that Marvel's wrapping up its Ultimate universe, which I still sort of question as a business move, but I do sort of respect on like a creative level, because it means we're going to get like a solid 2-year comic run, crossover run, or runs, I should say, because it was a few issues. But I like that things happened in real time, and I like that it'll have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You don't always get that with serialized superhero books. Anyway, we knew that it was coming to an end because the 5-part Ultimate Endgame has already started. But this week, they announced that there's one final book that they're going to release April 29th. That'll be the end of the Ultimate Universe. Ultimate Endgame's conclusion will happen, and then we're going to get Ultimate Universe Finale. It's just a one-shot, but it's going to bring together all of the creators that have worked on the monthly comics. Let them sort of say goodbye. 2 is better than 1. Just the 2 of us. Just the 2 of us. From the moment I heard Frau say I had a clone, I knew that I'd be safe because I'd never be alone. An evil doctor. Shouldn't speak a lot about his feelings. My hurt and my pain don't make me too appealing. I hoped Scott would look up to me, run the business of the family, have him evil empire just like his dear old dad, give him the love and the things I never had. Anyway, it continues from there. Sorry, I got on a tangent. Delightful. All right, what else on this one? Oh, just that it's written by all the people that were the regulars. Dennis Camp, Chris Condon, John Hickman, Brian Hill, Peach Momoko. And art by Alessandro Cappuccio, Stefano Caselli, Marco Cicchetto, Juan Frigeri, and Peach Momoko, with a cover by Phil Noto, who had filled in on a few issues of Ultimates. I hope it's fun. I like that they're bringing all the creators back to just do sort of a fun little wrap up. Yeah, in a lot of ways, I'm glad too. If they nail the ending, it'll be well regarded, because comic book runs are what people tend to remember as long as it has a really solid ending. All right, moving on. Oh, this is kind of cool. It ties into sort of Disneyland or Disney World, but it's a comic. Maybe you guys have been to Galaxy's Edge before. If you haven't, before I read this, Galaxy's Edge is a part of Disney. It's Star Wars. Like everything is themed like you're walking through a spaceport on this fictional planet. Fictional, yeah. You're not walking around on Venus or Jupiter. You're walking around on a fictional Star Wars planet, and as compared to one of those real ones like Endor. It's really cool. I went there once. I had a great time. I really did. It's very immersive. I like Star Wars. The rides that I went on were pretty fantastic. Chrissy and I had a really good day there. But if there is a critique, it's that, Disney built it based on their trilogy, the sequel trilogy, which, they didn't even know necessarily how that would be received. It was sort of being built while they were still making those last 2 movies. And it's like you go there and that is fun, but I think that people do have a lot more affection for Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie. We just do. I did have some food, but I don't think I got blue milk when I was there. Chrissy and I did build lightsabers. We went on the rides. It was good. Anyway, Disney's making a change. April 29th, Disney's going to rearrange that park and basically give a little more than 2/3 of it. It's going to be like, the same rides and stuff, but they're going to reskin it essentially. And it's going to be like it's the original trilogy cast. You're not going to see necessarily Rey walking around. You're going to see Luke or Leia. There's still going to be a portion of it that's dedicated to the sequel trilogy, but they're going to reskin most of it. And to go with that, to promote it, Marvel is making a comic, sort of set those characters in that world, give it a story. So they're going to reveal the official story of the Empire and the Rebels encounter on Batu. That's the planet that the spaceport you visit is on. It's going to be called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Echoes of the Empire. That's going to start a week before the theme park changes over, starting on the 22nd. Well, they're not going to totally get rid of it, just to be clear, Dave. They're just going to dedicate more space to making it like the original trilogy. And they don't have to change a lot because they still had the Millennium Falcon and, you know, you're on an Imperial Star Cruiser for another ride. So it's not a massive change necessarily. That's interesting. I would imagine that it's a big enough investment that it's not just for the 50th anniversary, but I'm not saying that you're wrong. Yeah, my tweet that went super viral, I will talk about that at the end of the show when I'm drawing, because that has been very obnoxious. Let's see. Bought the trade paperback about the hotel at a garage sale. $3. $3 is good. They should actually have Boba Fett. Or you know what they should have now is The Mandalorian, because that would fit in with the original trilogy. You know what? Now that I say that, as soon as I say that, I'm sure that they will have Mandalorian and Grogu added. Of course they would. Of course they would. They are going to show the unmodified, the originals cut of the movies. That, maybe it makes me sound like an old man, but I far prefer the original versions. And I went to the theaters when they had the special editions, but the special editions kind of drove me nuts with some of the changes, like Han Solo stepping on Jabba the Hutt's tail. I was like, we didn't need that added to the movie. We didn't. Hey, it's my sister. Very cool. Very cool. Nice to see you, Jeans. Anyway, it's going to be 5 issues. Written by Ethan Sachs. He wrote the original Galaxy's Edge tie-in comic back in 2019 when the theme park first opened. And some of the artists Marvel's been using lately, Jethro Morales and Roy Mercado. Could be fun. Could be. We'll see. This is just a little thing that cracked me up a bit. I hope it cracks you up. So you've probably seen, if you are ever online, you're at least on YouTube, but any other social media platforms, there's always these weird stories of like Tatiana Maslany as She-Hulk has been fired or that she's quit. And it's never based on anything. It's based on rumors, and it's just outrage clickbait. That, not saying that's good or bad even. It's just the truth, you know? It's designed to get clicks, but it's never really based on anything. Nevertheless, what was funny is this week, the actress, Tatiana Maslany, showed that she's completely aware of all those stories that have been out the last 3 years. And she really goofed on them in a funny way, in my opinion. So she was on Comedy Bang Bang. That's a comedy podcast hosted by Scott Aukerman. By the way, I used to have a podcast on Scott's network. Actually, Chuck in here was also on that podcast. We talked about TV. It was a long time ago now, but we were actually in a competition. They invited 10 podcasts to compete, and we didn't get kicked off first or second or anything. We were there for a little while, so that was kind of funny. And I got to meet Scott. He's really, really nice. Tatiana Maslany, if you don't know, she is an actress, but she's done comedy. She's done improv and stuff, and she's been going on Comedy Bang Bang for a long time. She played herself in this, but she improv'd a pretty funny line. Like Scott was like, oh, you know, are you going to be in Avengers Doomsday? And she goes, nope. Disney has approached me to play She-Hulk again. Guys, I said no, because I just did. This is the facts. They're out there. You can read the articles about it. I was really mad at them for kicking me out of Deadpool and Wolverine. I was just mad. I'm woke. It's woke feminist stuff. I was like, how dare you cast a woman in this role? That's disgusting. I'm embarrassed to even be here. They really wanted me to be in Doomsday Avengers style or whatever. I turned them down. I'm confirming it here. And what's a little funny is that there are some of those sites out there that just report on gossip and rumors for movies that took this as a legit quote. There are one or two that like legit thought that she was saying this stuff. And it's like, she's on a comedy podcast, folks. She's just showing that she's very aware of this stuff. She cracks me up. Yeah, she's joked about it before. She's joked about like how like Ryan Reynolds got mad at her and fired her. Anyway. I know it's a comedy podcast that like one of the guests this week was like Tawny Newsome, who's Mariner on the Star Trek animated show. I forget the name of it right now. Lower Decks? I think it's Lower Decks. Tawny Newsome played a character that was like a living version of the Hollywood sign. So it's like, how seriously can you take this show? It was pretty good. And apparently Tawny Newsome and Tatiana Maslany are doing something Star Trek related together, because Maslany has a supporting role in the new Starfleet series as like the mother of the main character. So Star Trek Upper Decker. Anyway, just a silly little thing I thought I'd pass on. This is interesting. Let's look closely at this art. This is actually John Byrne's art, to be clear. Yeah. Anyway, June 23rd, Abrams is going to release the first of 3 volumes that will publish John Byrne's X-Men fanfic. They're going to call it X-Men Else When. This is a real thing. He did like about 32 issues just for himself, releasing it on his forums. He just did an X-Men fanfic for many years, but it's finally going to get published. And it continues his X-Men run as though he got to write and draw it. Instead of like where he left the series, it's like he gets to take over. So it's like the X-Men timeline just sort of goes in a different direction because it's his ideas. Anyway, if you go to the Amazon pre-order link, you can see several pages from it. And this is the first time we've ever seen them inked or colored. Before this, he just posted pencils with like word balloons, but it was never officially inked or colored because it was, you know, a fan project essentially. I like the colors. I think that like doesn't distract. It's not too busy or anything. I don't know who's the inker yet. I'm not sure if I love that, to be honest. Like this picture of Wolverine has too many lines. It's a little too rendered for me. It doesn't quite remind me of like, you know, the Terry Austin era where Terry Austin made John Byrne's art look so damned good. So damned good. We live in a world where outrage sells. Feel like most of the articles are written by AI and shared by AI and make money on clicks. Add to dystopia list. Yes, you're not wrong at all. You're not wrong. It's interesting. Cartoonist Kayfabe looked at some of the issues back in the day. And sometimes I honestly think I might also do that, like take a look at it, because it's just such an interesting idea. You know, he's a professional writer and artist that did a project with characters that he doesn't own just for the love of the game. I mean, he really does have a huge affection for Marvel and DC stuff. It's very interesting, especially if you grew up reading his stuff. So I will be getting this for sure, but I don't know if I'll love it. Yeah. There's a link, by the way, if you wanted to see some more pages, because they've got like about, I don't know, 10 or 12. So that you can get a sense of what it looks like. I think I've looked through it. I haven't read it all, but I've looked through it over the years, and you know, it's always been pencils. And honestly, the pencils look pretty damn good because they're very tight pencils. And yet they're still pencils, so there's room for interpretation, and you can be more forgiving, I think, from pencils versus like final inked and colored art. So I don't know if I'm going to love this inking or not, but I can't tell who's doing it. There's parts that I like. I like the amount of detail in, say, like the rubble behind Kitty here, but I'm not sure if I love how Kitty's face here or Wolverine's face look. Just doesn't quite remind me of how John Byrne draws. That doesn't fully, the layout speaks to me, but that doesn't quite read as classic John Byrne art to me. But that's me. I might be having a skewed opinion. It's being inked by Byrne and a member of his message board. That's fair. I've seen John Byrne inks, so maybe some of this is. I don't think this panel in particular, that does not read like it was inked by John Byrne. I could be wrong. I could be, but it doesn't read that way to me. I'm still going to get it. I'm not sure if I love it or not, but I'm way too curious not to get it. The pencils were done over a series of a lot of years, but I would say it's generally pretty consistent. Some of the heads might sometimes look a little too big or too cartoony here and there, but it's pencils, so you sort of forgive it and don't think as much about it. Some of it's pretty recent. He did this project for a long time. He did this project for quite a while. But if you go to the Byrne Robotics message boards, you can still see it. It's worth it. It's interesting. There was some new information on the Spider-Man Superman. And I'm just looking at this one variant cover, and I've got something to say about it in a minute. Nothing about Eric Larson's art, actually, just the layout. But first, the news. Marvel released tiny synopses of all the creators and which characters they're covering in their Marvel issue. So the main story is going to be by Brad Meltzer and Pepe Larraz. Pepe's a really good artist, in my opinion. They're going to have Spider-Man and Superman go up against their classic enemies, Lex Luthor, Norman Osborn, and it says that their biggest villains are going to exploit some of their greatest weaknesses. So I'm guessing kryptonite and like love of family. That's my guess. This is cool. They're going to have one set in the 1930s with Spider-Man Noir meeting the Golden Age iteration of Superman. And that's going to be by Dan Slott and Marcos Martin. I like the idea of that artist on it, Marcos Martin. Yeah, that could really work. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I was a little surprised at that because I feel like, Jeff is just doing so much of his own stuff through Ghost Machine. And if anything, I associate him way more with DC. But yeah, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, they're going to have the Superman and Spider-Man families, since they both have so many extended spin-off characters, against each other at the summons of Mysterio. So Mysterio going to do something to, make like Superboy and Supergirl go up against Miles Morales and Silk and so on. Could be fun. Oh, is Meltzer also part of Ghost Machine? I guess I forgot that. That's interesting. Family. What else do we got? Symbiote hordes invade Metropolis as a new War of the Realms ignites. We've got Jason Aaron and Russell Dodderman. Boy, were they good on Thor. They're going to get to use their version of Jane Foster's Thor and Wonder Woman. That seems more like a Marvel DC than a specifically Spider-Man Superman, but I guess they'll tie in Spider-Man and Superman somehow. Louise Simonson, Wheezy. She's the co-creator of Steel, but also did tons for Marvel over the years. I loved her work on X Factor and some of the other mutant stuff. Did I just say X? Yeah, X Factor. And artist Todd Knock. They're going to have John Henry Irons battle Hobgoblin. I like that idea of having a superhero from one universe battle a villain from another, as compared to a pure team up. That could be interesting. Joe Kelly, he's the current Spider-Man writer. Umberto Ramos has drawn tons of Spider-Man. They're going to deliver a campus crossover between Gwen Stacy and Lana Lang. Okay. And then we're going to have Miles Morales' original creators, Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli, team up to do a Superman story with Miles. Not bad. not bad. There's a few of these that I'm more interested in than others. But I just decided to put up this variant cover because I enjoy a lot of Eric Larson's work. I do. But I'm realizing that Marvel's decision here on how to lay out the title it's weird. Because look, Eric Larson clearly did artwork with a lot of space for the title to allow it to be big. And I would have had the Spider-Man, if anything, sort of match up with this loop here, make it bigger. There's this little semicircle, and then had Superman really big here, just a little lower. It's okay if it covers up some webbing or some falling building. I would have made this bigger. I think that's part of the selling point. I do love that, this isn't necessarily a story, but we're taking the cyborg versions of each character from the 90s. That's pretty funny. But yeah, this layout for the actual header strikes me as very strange. I would have made both bigger, and I would have centered them. I would have literally had the Spider-Man centered and the Superman centered. And yeah, I don't know. So I don't love that. But I'm being nitpicky there. I'm being nitpicky. Switching over to some DC stuff. On Instagram, James Gunn posted something. And of course, he's the guy when it comes to the DCU. He posted about Mr. Miracle's anniversary this week. Hold on, let me acknowledge that. We better get a symbiote Superman. I bet we do. Yeah, I think that's super likely. So he wrote, the world's greatest escape artist made his debut on this day 55 years ago in 1971. Happy anniversary to Mr. Miracle, who debuted in Mr. Miracle #1, written by Jack Kirby, with pencils by Jack Kirby and inks by Vince Colletta. I love when James Gunn does this because there's been actual metrics that it increases comic book sales when he mentions a specific comic and creators, because that's what people need so that they can ask for that at their comic store. Anyway, he also wrote, soon to be seen in our DCU animated show. Now, we knew that there was, going to be an animated show. I don't think it had been confirmed that it was set in that shared universe. It could have just been a side project, for instance, like the Batman Part 2. But no, apparently it's going to be set in the DCU. So that's what's new. So that confirms that the upcoming cartoon is going to be canon with the live action movies. I think it also helps to explain why the DCU is calling this first phase Gods and Monsters. We've had the monsters in stuff like Creature Commandos. The gods, not necessarily, although personally, I think that there's a chance that some new god stuff could show up in either more Peacemaker or the Superman sequel. I really think that we're going to get some new god stuff. So I bet part of why they're doing this animated show is to just sort of lightly introduce those concepts to the mainstream reading public. I would imagine. That's just a guess. Thank you for the kind words about my latest episode about Jack Kirby. Thank you. That would be cool. That would be cool. Oh, the show is based on the comic, the 12-issue comic that Tom King and Mitch Gerads made. And Tom King is the showrunner of the animated series. Speaking of Tom King, I did not know about this, but this came out this week. Tom King was a guest on the Word Balloon podcast, and he talked about all the times he came close to working with Jim Lee. He hasn't actually done a collaboration with Jim Lee over the years, but he did reveal one of the times where it came really close, and it wasn't what I expected. Tom King said, very early in my career, they had hired me for all of one day to finish All-Star Batman and Robin, which I think went 8 or 9 issues. It went 10, and was supposed to go 12. And they never, And I think both Frank and Jim, who are both friends of mine, would agree that it is a crazy series. If you read it, it is a roller coaster ride. So yeah, at one point, DC was thinking of finishing it, but with Tom King writing it. That would be an unenviable task to finish up a crazy book like that. That's just so Frank Miller. It's so Frank Miller. You almost can't win with that. And that's probably why it didn't happen. That's all. Yeah. That's probably why it didn't happen. It's like the room of comics for you. I get that. I get that. I don't know how you'd end it, because like I say, it did go 10 issues. If they wanted to finish it in 12, that's very difficult. It didn't really, it felt like they were introducing new characters, but there was no real linear story of like a big villain that they had to take out or anything. If you don't know, All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder was a series by Frank Miller and Jim Lee. It faced a lot of delays. It just did. Never finished. Some, like me, find it pretty amusing. I think it was satirical. I think it's over the top. It's crazy and not like my favorite thing at all, but I am amused by it. I'm amused by how bonkers it is. But a lot of readers didn't like it. And I can understand that argument, because the Batman that Frank Miller gives us in All-Star Batman and Robin, he's deeply unlikable. He's grouchy, he's mean, he's not nice to anyone. He's just a total asshole, to be honest. Just a total asshole. So anyway, it's probably for the best that it was never finished. I'm the goddamn Batman. I was hyped it's in Dark Knight Returns. Let's see, the kayfabe episode of that run makes that run funny, just like trash movies, Madam Web. Thank you for the shout out there. I will say, as somebody that absolutely loves and respects Neil Adams, his Batman Odyssey, I think, is way more bonkers, way crazier than Batman and Robin, All-Star Batman and Robin. I think it's way crazier. A-hole Batman is the best Batman. I didn't mind the grouchy, curmudgeonly Batman in the original Dark Knight Returns, because it feels like some time has passed and things went bad, and it's like you earned that Batman. But if you go back to All-Star Batman and Robin, and it's like just after, say, year one, and Batman's just a total jerk right at the beginning, you're like, where's his idealism? Like, what made him want to be a hero? He's just, I don't like him there. Thank you. I think it's crazier. Yup. He got to do his Hollow Earth and Expanding Earth theories, and just some really bonkers stuff. I made an episode about it because I think it's hilariously bad, and I love Neil Adams, but I think Batman Odyssey is just the most insane Batman story out there. Literally crazier than All-Star Batman and Robin. Oh, here's a fun thing for Superman. I think it's fun. I think it's cool. Kevin Smith is going to do a Bizarro book. He's going to team up with writer and screenwriter Eric Carrasco and artist Nick Pitara, who I love from Axe Wielder John. That was a great creator-owned, crowd-funded book. Nick Pitara's also done stuff like Hulk. Really good artist. They're going to make Bizarro Year None. And it's about, of course, one of Superman's strangest enemies, Bizarro. His weird, maybe clone, maybe other dimensional counterpart, just sort of a backwards Superman. Year None. It's going to be a 4-issue origin story for the character, as much as you can do. And the first issue, kind of hilarious timing. They're going to release it on April Fool's Day, April 1st. Not bad. Not bad at all. DC describes this story. The series follows Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, and Clark Kent's boss, Perry White, as they depart the Daily Planet for a strange adventure in outer space. We're just going full 1950s sci-fi nutsy stuff. Their journey leads them to a dimension that mirrors Metropolis in uncanny ways and reveres its legendary newspaper as an article of faith. As they unravel the mystery of this bizarre world, they confront the being behind it all. Is he a misguided Superman fan? An agent of pure chaos? Or is he no one at all? I think that could be a lot of fun. I hope it is. Bizarro is a cool character sometimes. One of the covers for this is by Frank Quitely. It looks incredible. I almost included that, but I wanted to give credit to Nick Pitara since he's drawing the actual book. But Nick is at least as big a fan of Frank Quitely as I am, probably bigger. Wait, what was this? I see Kevin watched Galaxy Quest. What's the... Yes, I agree with you that Kevin Smith comics can be hit and miss, but he's been writing a lot of comics lately. A lot of stuff revisiting Clerks and Mallrats in the comics, the official crossover with Archie. Yeah, he does not need to ever come back and finish the Daredevil Target miniseries. I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine if that goes unfinished. But I like this idea. Let me talk to you about some market share changes. It's kind of quick. This data is based on Comic Hub. Again, that's a point of sale system that samples around 150 stores across North America. Okay, so this isn't the literal sales data. It's interpolating that data based on a sample set. It could be off a little, but it's probably ballpark correct. Anyway, DC's market share increased this quarter. I don't think anybody reading comics these days could be surprised by that. They've been increasing for a while, actually. DC this quarter had 32.6% of the market. So basically a full third. And keep in mind, they don't publish as many comics as Marvel does. So that's extra impressive. That's for the quarter four data. Quarter four of 2025 just ended. But if we compare it, they had 26.9% in quarter four a year ago, 2024. And that was already like about a 10% gain from where they'd been in 2023. So the last several years has been really good for DC. DC has been very consistent for the last few years. Yep, I agree. Absolute and the compact comics. Those are the two biggest things that DC has done. Marvel slipped a little bit. They slipped from 33.3% this time last year to 29.6%. Only a few percentage points, but it is going down. Basically, DC took that. DC took all of that. The rest of the top 10 remain the same that they've been from the last year, except for slot 10 is now Kodansha, which was Titan Comics last year. So I guess they're just bringing more manga to the American market or the English market. And then over here, I put the actual percentages that Comic Hub reports. So like I said, there's the DC and Marvel. Image still has 12.2, which is a good chunk. And then it's a big jump down after that. IDW Top Shelf has 4%. Dark Horse has 3.2. Boom has 2.3. Dynamite has 2.3. Viz has 2.1. Oni has 1.2. Kodansha has 1.2. And everybody else makes up 9.3% that's remaining. So, yeah. I think the more interesting part than who has how much is seeing the trends. Yeah, and the reason it's not is because Comic Hub is tracking more the floppies and trade paperbacks at comic book stores specifically. So it's not a complete data set. I hope I'm making those qualifications clear. Yeah. Scholastic, and then if we started including, actual bookstore sales, I think that Viz would be likely to shoot way up. Way up. Because, great question, because this is the market share represented by comic book stores, not by bookstores and online retailers. If we included those, I would expect Scholastic and Viz to be towards the very top, I would guess. Does that make sense? That we're looking at data from the comic book stores as compared to some of those other distribution channels? That's what we're looking at here. Hopefully that makes sense. Moving on. We did the news. Time to move on. I love this idea. So we knew that we were getting a Rocketeer book. I talked about it anyway on this. It's called The Island. It's a miniseries by John Layman, Jacob Edgar, KJ Diaz, IDW Publishing. Starts next month. But what I didn't realize was that at the time that they announced this, which was a full month ago now, to be clear, IDW released a motion comic trailer on YouTube. And a lot of times I'll skip that. Motion comic trailers don't interest me a whole lot generally. But they did reveal something that I didn't realize. They're going to be using a bunch of public domain characters in this Rocketeer book, which I think is a very clever idea. The story is based, by the way, on an original outline by the creator of the Rocketeer, the late, great Dave Stevens. It's set back in 1938, follows Cliff Secord, the Rocketeer. He goes on an adventure to an island to save Amelia Earhart, who famously, lost at sea. We don't know where she crashed. In this, Cliff must know. So the motion comic trailer shows Popeye, created by E.C. Cigar, and Tintin and Snowy, created by Hergé. And those three characters are in the public domain. They all debuted in 1929. For a character like Rocketeer that's set in the past, I was just like, that's a good use of stuff that's in the public domain. You draw it in a style where you're not trying to necessarily compete with the original. You're not putting them on the title, but it's a good use to create a team of characters. I was like, I feel like that is a much more clever use of public domain stuff, sort of mixing and blending, than just doing, say, the horror version or the whatever version. Yet you're going to enter the public domain, I'll be sure to use you. And then I've got wild speculation on my own part. The Island, the comic itself, we've seen the island, and it has a big skull mountain. Now, that could just be a skull mountain. But personally, it started making me wonder if that represents Skull Island from King Kong. Now, King Kong is still under copyright. That was 1933. It's still got a few years. And, Legend Pictures is putting out new copyrighted King Kong stuff still in like that Godzilla King Kong universe. But while King Kong himself and the look is copyrighted, they made a novelization of the original King Kong movie that same year. And that was never renewed properly for copyright. So the ideas within it, not the exact execution and not the names, but like the ideas in it of a giant ape and Skull Island itself, those are in the public domain. So they could use that stuff. Maybe that's me just going, hey, here's two public domain things, so I'm going to guess that there's another. I could be wrong, but it would be cool. You can, I think Betty Page, some of that stuff is public domain. It's a little confusing to me. I'd have to look that one up again. No, I know. I wanted that Tintin sequel, but... Baron Gong, giant ape. Queen Kong is a truly terrible movie. Is there such a thing? I would believe that. I know, yeah. Also, there are other things that have a skull cave. So that's me saying I might be wrong. I don't think the Phantom Skull Cave is necessarily in the public domain, but I'd have to double check. Anyway, just amused me seeing these characters go, and I go, oh, that's clever. That's clever. Time for some Angouleme news. This past Friday, the mayor of the town of Angouleme, Xavier Bonifant, he announced that the city is going to hold a new comic festival in 2027. It's not the existing Angouleme Comics Festival. There's going to be a new one, a new convention, new leadership, just same location, same idea. It's going to be separate from the basically disgraced Angouleme Comic Art Festival. The Association for the Development of Comics, or like I think it might be called like the AADC, something along those lines. I don't know. Anyway, the association is going to serve as the new governing body for the convention. The president of that was standing alongside Xavier when this was announced on Friday. And they're opening applications for a new organizer of the event. And that's going to go through March. Instead of February, it looks like the new Comics Festival will push it back a little to March when it's a little warmer. That could create a little bit of competition because there's a big event in Brussels, Belgium in March. I don't know what it's called, something like Belgium Book Fair or something. But there's probably enough room for both. The prizes will be actual cash prizes now instead of just a trophy or something. They're going to have actual cash prizes, they said. And only pros can get in for free. They were allowing like lots of people to get in for free before. They say no, this is going to be a paid convention festival event. The Angouleme Festival of Sequential Arts. They might call it something like that. I don't know. By the way, there is a good chance that now that this whole new thing is being set up and the town of Angouleme and the country of France is like, no, we're not going to support the other one, there could be a lawsuit. There could be a lawsuit there. I would expect one. But we will see. I think the good news is they're starting fresh. This is a town that has the infrastructure and knowledge and background to support a gigantic festival. It's one of the bigger comic events in the world. Not the biggest, but one of the bigger ones. And I think it's nice that there's something that's going to take its place. I hope so. Coffee. As long as I'm talking about conventions, boy, was San Diego in the news this week. The San Diego Comic-Con came under fire. It was honestly really brief, but it was pretty hot on Wednesday. On Wednesday, it wasn't so. I say that they announced it was more like people were reading the rules and posted, and it went pretty big on social media. People were looking at the rules, and it said that while you can't sell AI imagery at the art auction event at the convention, they do allow it in advertisements. And people were like, whoa, we're not okay with that. The backlash was so fast and so strong that the convention actually reversed their decision late Wednesday. By Thursday, the new rules were out. And basically, AI imagery is now explicitly banned. The revised language specifically reads their Rule 3, material created by artificial intelligence, either partially or wholly, is not allowed in the art show. Again, we're talking specifically about the art show. It's an auction event at the convention, okay? Not the entire convention. If there are questions, the art show coordinator will be the sole judge of acceptability. So Glenn Wooten is the guy that organizes the art show, and he shared an exchange with artist Dane Alt and gave Dane permission to share that on social media. And basically he explained that this language has actually been in the convention for the last several years, and it was meant as a deterrent for people against people using AI because they were never allowed to sell if like AI imagery. That was always their rule, was you couldn't sell it. They just didn't have it in strong enough language that you like, they'd allow it in some of the advertisement. But Wooten explained that that was really just because when they first created the language, AI was new and emerging, and they realized this year, hey, we need to make it like 100% clear and be super firm. They updated the language. It is outright banned. So I think it's a good step. I think it levels the playing field for artists, and honestly makes things hopefully safer for somebody that's going to buy art, because I don't know. I see a couple stories here and there of people that are very disappointed to find out that the art they bought was just generated by AI. And who wouldn't be? Like, there's no work that's been put into that. So, yeah. Well, that's why they say that the decision would go to the art show coordinator. There's a person whose job it is if somebody says, that looks like AI to me, they can go to the artist and say, you need to show us the process, like, or something. And I think that you can sometimes tell, basically. But, you know, could AI imagery still slip through? Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, yes. But if you get called on it, you might need to be able to prove that you can make it. I just mean prints. That's exactly what I mean. Prints. I've heard of people buying prints that they thought was still like based on a painting, and then you find out, no, it just like went through, you know, it was just a prompt. It was nothing. So look, it's just something. There's no easy way to just look at something and say that's definitely AI. And I think that we should be a little careful and give people some grace, because I think it would be really sad for an artist who just happens to paint in a style that's probably been like, you know, cribbed by the AI. Like, you know, the AI has trained itself on that artist's style. It would be very unfair for that person to get accused of using AI if they haven't. So we do need to be careful, but we're at least creating very firm language. I never save my sketches. Can I just show my layers in Procreate and that's it? I would imagine that if somebody wanted to look and check, that probably would be enough that they would give you at least the benefit of the doubt, if not outright prove your case. That's just my 2 cents. It is getting harder to spot, but I think that there are still a few telltale signs. The way a person could make a mistake of drawing too many fingers is still very different from the way AI will have, you know, details like, we'll say, a costume merge into hair. Like, it just merges, and you're just like, well, a person doesn't do that. How do we, I don't know. I don't know. How do you know? How do you know? I don't. Look, the first step is they have to create language, and they've done that. And you have to set precedents one at a time. Things are changing fast. However, some of the news that I read just this past week indicated that, for instance, OpenAI, you know, they're losing money really fast. It costs way more to run a lot of these AI software things on servers than I really started there. Costs a lot more to run than it is bringing in. It's very expensive to use these large language models. And so it seems inevitable in some ways because it's being pushed by every company. But if it can't find a way to actually turn a profit, a lot of it is going to die off. The technology exists, and potentially it could be used for simple tools like, you know, I don't know, making spreadsheets or pie charts faster, or doing faster searches, maybe someday more accurate searches for, like, you know, internet searches. Maybe there are some uses there. I don't think that there's going to be a long-term benefit to generating the like outright artwork, because it's never going to do a very good job at revising itself the way you want it to, because it has to train itself on something that's existing. It's just going to be too hard. Like, you could come up with like a really cool character design, right? But you really need it to be a worm's eye view of this character, and you need it to be a little more muscular. It's probably never going to be able to do it that well. Thank you for pointing this out, Chrissy. You're right. Procreate does automatically save a time-lapse video. So that's just one tool that you could use to defend yourself. All right. That's probably plenty of talk for the San Diego Comic-Con thing. Here's a quick one. Japanese manga publisher Shogakukan held their 71st annual manga awards. It's pretty prestigious. It's one of the bigger manga awards out there. They used to sort of have categories, but the last couple of years, they just basically say, these are the 5 best manga. I think it's 5. Hold on. I listed them all, so we'll see if I remember correctly that it's 5. So anyway, these are the winners this year. Tatsuya Yukinobu, Dandadan, which, by the way, is by competing publishers, Shueisha. Fuda Kimura's Fate Rewinder, Ryohei Tamura's Cosmos. I've heard Cosmos, and I think I've seen it even at the stores, but I've never read anything except Dandadan out of this list. Natsumi Eguchi's Dekin no Mogura, the Earthbound Mole. And finally, Keigo Shinzo's Hirayasumi. So let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, I was right, 5. Anyway, those are the winners. And I put that out there because maybe you're looking for a manga to try that's new to you. Well, these all won awards for being the best of the year. So something you could look into if you wanted to try one. The only one out of this that I'm reading is Dandadan, but it's one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Well, saving your stages of your progress could also be beneficial to you if you're drawing digitally, because you might want to back up, or you might just want to back up if something, fails or is lost. By the way, sorry if I didn't say hello to you. My buddy Christopher, Bronze Age Nerd, he does a great live show about comics as well with his friend Big B McFly, the comic book guy. They do that on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, I would love some thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, buddy. Corpse Night. This sounds very cool to me, but I will just, full disclosure, say that the reason I'm most excited for it is a friend of mine, Matt Roberts, is the artist on it. Matt is one of the guys back in the day, was on like Wizard World and Pencil Jack message boards. We would draw projects together. He did like several stories for things like Battle Pope with Robert Kirkman before Kirkman was Kirkman. Anyway, Skybound is going to publish Corpse Night. It's a comic by artist, I misspelled his name. That's how good a friend I am. Matthew Roberts. Manifest Destiny is the latest comic of his that you may have read. And director Michael Chavez. He did 4 movies in the Conjuring series, including the last one. To be fair, those movies make money. It will be a 6-issue series, so it's limited series, begins April 22nd. But what is it? Set in medieval France, Corpse Night tells the story of a young girl named Foy who loses her father. And as Foy struggles to fend for herself, I should read, she's granted a miracle. Her father returns from the dead to protect her. He is the titular Corpse Knight. A massive protective zombie or Frankenstein-like creature. The idea started, this was interesting, when Chavez was researching, he wanted to do a story about how Joan of Arc, the actual historical figure, had a companion, Gilles de Rais, who was he was like a comrade, a warrior, right? It turns out he was actually a nobleman who was later revealed to be a serial killer of kids. So this person that was fighting like a holy war had this person that was just utterly evil at her side. She was unaware, but like, it's just a crazy bit of history. And he was like trying to figure out how to crack the story. And then he realized that maybe they don't need to be the central figures. Maybe they could be supporting characters. And he had this new idea, and that changed everything. Like, he developed all this knowledge and was like, oh, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be about them. They can be part of the story, but the real story is this thing. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Anyway, Matt Roberts is great at like expressive people, super detailed backgrounds, and he's good at honestly like gore and gross stuff too. So it could be really, really cool. I don't know anything about that, to be honest. I don't know anything about this, and I might be mispronouncing it because I don't know anything about French, but Guy, is it Gil or Guy? I don't know. Guy de Ray showed up in Spawn. Just a bonkers bit of history. Just a really crazy thing where you've sort of got like an angelic and a demonic figure working side by side. And yeah. Just crazy. Oh, I'm glad you read it, especially from the library. Great re-envisioning of the Lewis and Clark expedition by saying that there were all these cryptids and that like their real mission wasn't necessarily just to map a way out west, but to clear the path of dangers for the rest of America. I like that. I think this sounds like a cool idea. I'm going to check it out for sure. But again, I'm a fan of Matt Roberts' art. He's great. Speaking of image stuff going to like related to movies and stuff, that was like a movie maker making a comic. Well, now a comic going to the movies. Lyrical Media and James Tynion's Tiny Onion are teaming up to develop 2 of his comics into horror movies. One is an adaptation of Exquisite Corpses, which is still coming out. And then one based on a short film that he worked on, as well as a one-shot comic based on that called Room Service. I'll explain what those are. Exquisite Corpses follows 12 wealthy families that run America in secret, and every year they each hire a killer to represent them. The winner gets to run America. And they just have these killers fight each other in a sealed off town in the middle of nowhere, America. Room Service, you may remember this. It was a Kickstarter. It was a crowdfunded short film. It was co-created by artist Elsa Charretier and director P.K. Collinet. It was about a sinister hotel service that allows its clients to commit their ideal murder scenarios. So, yeah. Man, I with all the things that Tynion is doing and how many of them are going to get adapted to film and TV, it sort of makes me wonder if we're going to get to keep him in comics for forever, or if, you know, he'll be lured away by definitely the better paying world of Hollywood. I don't know. Yeah, there's a reason why there's 12, and I can't remember why. Because it is an even bracket set, as I recall. I don't remember. Has any Tynion option actually been made? There's several in development right now, but he hasn't been working in the industry that long. So I don't think any of them have seen it all the way to fruition yet. Yeah, if Hollywood options something for development, that means that they get exclusive rights to adapt it for a certain set amount of time before the rights will revert to you. That's always like every deal is different. But yeah, he is getting paid for these development deals for sure. That might be it, that like a family can't rule 2 times in a row. So if you win, you're not in the next competition. That would bring it down to 12. Yep. Thank you. I knew that there was a reason and it wasn't coming to me. Thank you, everybody. It's great when you have basically your own Google in the form of a live chat to correct you. I like it. I would say I don't always love it just because of some pacing, but I do like what they do. The premise is great. The art is great. A bunch of the characters are great. So it is very good. It's just some issues feel like just maneuvering stuff, and I'm like, let's see some bloodshed, you know. And so, but that's my take on it. Lawsuit got dismissed this week, or settled. So 17 artists, you may remember this from August of last year. 17 artists teamed up to sue art dealer Cadence in August. But they've settled out of court, and this week the judge has dismissed the case. This order of dismissal is new, contingent on the agreed settlement actually taking place. If it doesn't, you know, they get the right to refile. So here are the artists. Pretty big names. Pia Guerra, Jill Thompson, David Marquez, Becky Cloonan, she basically ran this group, Joelle Jones, Elena Casagrande, Tyler Crook, Wesley Craig, Layla Lays, Rafael Albuquerque, Jenny Frisson, Valerio Sheedy, Alessandro Capuccio, Mahmoud Asrar, Paolo Vianelli, Yildiray Sinar, and Denai Christina Kilaidani. Sorry if I mispronounced some of those names. They all joined together in a lawsuit. They alleged that Cadence Comic Art and its owner, Paolo Belfiore, almost got it out, failed to remit over $473,000 worth of art sold on consignment. Yikes. The full terms of the settlement are private. We'll never know what they offered up or anything. The original lawsuit, though, had alleged that there were these secret sales, commingling of funds to disguise what was being sold and not, going all the way back to 2008. This was like, you know, one of those art representatives. And yes, 17 artists all joined together. They all quit Cadence like overnight. It was definitely big news in August when it took place. I hope that something fair happened for these artists, because I love a lot of these names. These are some artists I really, really love. I think we all know that, you know, the actual page rate in comics, not too great, to be honest. You might do well with creator-owned stuff. You might do well with, what's it called? Residuals, or, you know, like, I don't know, if you sell over a certain amount, you get like some money back. But certainly selling your original art is a big income source for a lot of these artists. That's something that's definitely grown. Yeah, it looks like it's moved forward. It's probably the end of it. Royalties. Thank you. That was the word I couldn't think of. Thank you very much, Circuitron. Appreciate it. I mean, royalties kind of the same thing as residuals, but not quite. Anyway. Oh my gosh. Remember, it was only a few weeks ago we were talking about how this book, Oz, by Mike Deodato Jr., he was accused of having AI art. We'll never know for sure, but he was accused of that. Well, it got back in the news this week. Artist David Aha posted to social media something. It's kind of easy to read between the lines of what he's talking about. Here's what he said, though. Recently, I did a cover, and when I saw interiors, there was plenty of AI. Covers are done before final art. Artist has denied it. Publisher has denied it. But you cannot lie to me with this crap. I can obviously recognize AI art because it is my job. Obviously, I'm out of the project. As asked, yes, there was actually a clause for not using AI in any part of the book in the contract. And no, I'm not going to say it was the Oz book. Each time you use Gen AI, God kills a kitten. So he's not saying it, but I think you can read between the lines and it matches up with this one. That's what I'm thinking. If you don't remember, or if this is new, artist Sean Northridge had posted panels from the book that seemed likely to have been made by AI due to the fact that they were inconsistent, like the designs for characters, the city, things like that. But this week, Valentino Valdez, an artist and designer, also posted how one of the Oz characters looks super similar to a Scotty Young drawing. So let me show you some of this. First of all, I just want you to know, artist Mike Diodato has said that he absolutely does not use AI. That's what he said, okay? He has recently been posting lots of process videos of him drawing. But two things. One, he uses a studio of assistants. And two, he hasn't explicitly said that his assistants didn't use AI. You know, I'm just saying that there could be like a little wiggle room there. I don't like to make false accusations, so I don't know. But this got talked about a lot by other professional artists. And so, like, here's one example that Sean Northridge had posted of the Tin Man, 2 panels apart. And obviously, it's a pretty radical redesign of the details, which, you know, I guess the character maybe is always sort of shifting and changing, but I don't know. And then look at that. On the right, that is a Scotty Young drawing. And on the left, that's a new character in Oz. And I'm sorry, that's a pretty damn big coincidence of just how similar the pose and design is. So I didn't love seeing that. Because I don't know how you try to say that this is a coincidence, but I don't think he'll ever talk directly about that either, if I'm being realistic. We'll never know for sure. It's just that it's probably worth following when a couple professional artists sort of say these things. And you can sort of just vote with your dollar and make up your own mind. And, you know, maybe at least it forms a documented history so that you can tell later whether, you know, there's legit claims or not. I don't know. Here's just a happier thing. Yeah, Scotty should ask him for royalties. I mean, he's definitely swiped stuff. I don't think that there's any... I don't know that I've ever seen swipes of other artists. I've definitely seen him use photo reference. I mean, he made his Norman Osborn look like actor Tommy Lee Jones. He clearly used that. I'm sure Cullen feels bummed out. You know, he was the writer. This was huge. This was a humongous Kickstarter. It has an opening, by the way, a forward, I should say, by Elton John. They got a forward by Elton John. That is humongous. This had a lot of eyes on it. And it must be so bittersweet to, like, get, you know, a collaborator or a person like that and sell this many and then have this stuff happening that you have really no control over. He's probably just going to have to keep his mouth shut. It's tough. But anyway, this is something I've never actually watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, okay? So get mad at me if you want. But I do know that it's loved. I do know that it's beloved. A new comic book series based on Avatar: The Last Airbender, well, the universe anyway, is going to launch on May 6th from Dark Horse. And it's in collaboration with the creators of the original Nickelodeon animated series. That's fun. Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Kyoshi Warriors. The story was developed in collaboration with Avatar Studios and co-creators Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko? I don't know, maybe. It's going to be told 3 monthly issues. Here's the story as Dark Horse describes it. Suki and the Kyoshi warriors leave their island home to join the war against the Fire Nation. Met with suspicion and resentment by the mainlanders, they struggle to prove their worth to the Earth Kingdom. But when the opportunity arises, will they be willing to compromise their values as Kyoshi warriors to embrace it? I should watch it. Yeah. Oh, everything I've seen looks really good. I mean, I've seen clips and I'm like, oh yeah, the quality of the animation is top notch. And, you know, like the story looks pretty original, at least in execution. So I would like to see it. You know, it's like when somebody recommends a show that's gone on for several seasons, you're like, well, how am I going to get the time to go back and fit that in? I don't know. Oh yeah, I took a picture with somebody at like New York Comic Con that was holding like selling a cabbage or something, and I was like, "What's this a reference to? Zelda?" And now that you say that, I remember people were like, "No, it's Avatar." I was like, "Oh," I just thought it was amusing cosplay. Almost done with the news. I almost missed this one. Kind of came out last week, really, but I wanted to talk about it. We knew from solicitations that Thundercats issue 25 was going to be the final arc of the story that was being told now. This past week, we found out that it's also the final issue by writer Declan Shalvey and artist Drew Moss. But there's more to the story. Dec wrote on his Substack newsletter that he and Drew will be doing some more Thundercats, that this is their final monthly, but they're going to do some more Thundercats. It seems likely that they're going to work on the upcoming crossover with Silverhawks if we read between the lines. Because right now we've got this prequel comic coming, Road to War. We knew that there was going to be a crossover, but that's like a prequel setting up the dynamics of how this will work. The actual crossover is still coming. So here's what Declan wrote. There's a lot to talk about, but that is all I can comment on the subject for now, save for the fact that there is more Thundercats coming from me and Drew. In what form, I can't say just now, though Dynamite are lining up some podcast interviews for me in the next month or so. There are significant clues, though. The same month as Thundercats number 25 is Thundercats Silverhawks Road to War, written by Ed Brisson with art by Elton Tomasi and Alice Leclerc. Probably Leclerc. Will be interesting to see what happens with that clash. The one shot also features a logo cover that I designed, hand drew for the upcoming initiative. Here's a better look at it. And yeah, basically it's the Thundercats circle, like with the lion, but also with this hawk like posed over this. Yeah, it's cool. He goes by Dec with his friends. So when I meet him in person, I've called him Dec. But he is definitely not a predator. I haven't kept up with The Simpsons for a while now. Sorry. And since I was talking about Dynamite, I thought I'd throw this out. An upcoming indie thing that caught my eye. There's a new Humble Bundle for a ton of Dynamite comics. Just a ton. Tons and tons. They've got stuff like Green Hornet, their Dynamite crossover, Vampirella, Army of Darkness, Reanimator, all sorts of stuff. If you've never gotten a Humble Bundle before, you're buying a ton of digital comics. You get to set what you want to pay for it, and a bunch of money goes to charity. For this one, a portion goes to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, and if you go into the actual settings, you can determine how much you want to go to charity. So it's a pretty nice thing. You know, you can basically get like, I think it lets you just spend like $1 and get like hundreds of comics. But yeah, there's a link to it if it's something you might be interested in trying some stuff. There's Barbarella, there's Vampirella, there's some Red Sonja. There's a lot of stuff. It's cool. I thought that you guys might be interested. But yeah, that's the news of the week. So I think that we should keep the show going and move over to reviews, right? Yeah, let's do some reviews.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
Okay, so what do we got here? Let me move this a little bit. And we'll talk about some of the books that came out this week. I'll be honest, I got a lot. I got a lot of books this week. So some of them I'll just sort of do quick short reviews at the end, I think. And some of them I've got a little bit more to say. But I'll start with something that's, a pretty big event. Scott Snyder, Joshua Williamson, and what's Fernandez's first name that's drawing this? Is it Javi? Where's the credits? Yeah, Javi. I've been enjoying KO quite a bit, and I think it's because it has subverted a lot of my expectations. I really thought the idea, first of all, of like tournament style battle with superheroes and supervillains was appealing enough, but I also was hoping that it wasn't going to be too predictable, just like, this guy fights that guy, and it hasn't been. Each of these issues has instead focused on the characters being given like almost like a reality show game, just with lethal consequences by, a godly other force. And in this one, we're now down to 8 characters: Superman, Lex, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Joker, Guy Gardner, Zatanna, and Aquaman. And what they're done here is that they have to fight each other, but they each get to choose a teammate from anybody that's been in the tournament before. Or actually, I think just anybody, period. Yeah, anybody, period. They could choose as like their as their teammate. So what's cool about that is it gives you a sense of how these characters think to get a tactical advantage. Okay? Because at first glance, it does sort of seem like they're just choosing maybe a friend or somebody powerful, but each of these characters has a very clever reason for selecting their ally. I'll just give you a small idea of what's in this story. Cyborg chooses Connor Hawk, and you're like, well, why does Cyborg really need a guy that's good with a bow and arrow? And it's because Connor Hawk was raised by these ninja monk assassin guys. So he fights in a very unpredictable style. And with Cyborg's able to sort of connect with him and give Connor like nanites to get him stronger, but also read his fighting style, because Wonder Woman fights in a way like, just a trained military warrior. So and I was like, okay, that's a good tactical reason. It doesn't mean that you'll win, but I like that there was some thought put into it. And Superman chooses, I still think of him as Captain Marvel, but Billy Batson, right? I'm going to adjust the focus on this just a little bit. Hold on. I feel like that's not quite focused is all. Yeah, it needs to be. It's just tough to focus sometimes. Oh, Joker was given okay, that helps make sense. Okay, so everybody got to choose somebody that was in the tournament. Joker had won some sort of special, like immunity challenge, basically. Anyway, I love that Superman choosing Shazam is not just for somebody that's going to be super powerful, but the fact that he has access to magic and can share his powers with others. So Superman basically allows himself to get an upgrade. He gets all of Shazam's powers as well as himself. And I was like, that's cool. There are nice little surprises here that I wasn't expecting. Joker makes himself a character that we've seen in an older comic story, Emperor Joker, with the powers of Mixyazpitalik. I won't tell you who wins every match, but I'll just say that I liked that each of them had a logic to who they were selecting to get an advantage. And we do see some pretty cool fights. The Superman logo grew a beard. Blue Adam. It was fun. It was fun. And, by the end of this, we're down to 4 characters. We've got 2 issues to go. It's been fun watching it in a tournament style, but have it more than just you 2 fight, then you 2 fight, then you 2 fight. That there's new rules and wrinkles to every match. I like that. So DCKO has been impressing me. Is it an event book? Yeah. I know that there are tie-ins and spin-offs that are showing in more detail some of these fights, but I'm getting everything I need out of just the main book. I'm not reading any of the tie-ins or crossover stuff. I just have no interest in it. And if an event book does that, I'm instantly out. But I'll give a try here and there to see what sort of the top-tier talent from the publisher is doing with these characters. And I'm enjoying it. I do recommend it. I think it's fun. I think it's really fun and has some good surprises. Who did this cover, by the way? This is just what was available, but I'm not sure who the variant cover artist on this is. It's nice. It's nice. It is a great book. Yeah, Wonder Woman versus Lobo had been really cool. Here's another Big 2 book. There's very prominent. Marvel is in the final 5 months of their Ultimate Universe. And we've got issue 20 of the Ultimates. In the last issue, or actually really going back almost 2 issues, at first it looked like the Wasp had maybe been an infiltrator working for Nick Fury, who in the Ultimate Universe, bad guy. Actually, he doesn't know it, but he's a life model decoy. He does know that he works for the supervillains that control the world, but he doesn't realize that every once in a while through the years, he's figured out who he is, tried to, betray them, and they just kill him and make a new life model decoy. Wasp has been working for him, but in this issue, we realized that Wasp has also sort of been training to beat Nick Fury, not really working for him. And it pivots from Wasp to being a back and forth with Jim Hammond, who was the Human Torch, an android Human Torch from World War II, and Nick Fury, who's been around since World War II because he keeps getting rebuilt, unknown to him. And what it shows us is that there's been this secret history of them against each other throughout time because Iron Lad sent Jim Hammond back in time to prepare quietly, without changing history, but to secretly and quietly prepare so that the Ultimates could have the resources necessary to fight back in the present day. What? Oh my God, that's great. And it seems complex, but this issue makes it make sense. He has to make all these tough decisions. Jim Hammond does, now basically becoming the Vision of how he can get resources and get things that are off the books over the years. And what that includes is literally hiring people like James Rhodes, in this book an engineer, to make Detroit itself a transforming robot. But he's not War Machine, he's the anti-War Machine. That's a great little story beat. And there's a bunch more to it, but it's really cool to go back in time and have this sort of revelation that the Ultimates have been quietly getting ready for decades upon decades for this fight, that they had sort of this long-term goal. And it was it's a lot to ask of someone, Jim Hammond has had to live for decades on his own without working with his teammates to set this all up. And that's a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice that he would be uniquely suited for because he's a robot. And with all that extra time, he was able to also slowly upgrade himself. And I loved it. I loved it. It was a great twist I never saw coming. I should have. Vision has always canonically been built on the original cyborg robot body, android body of Jim Hammond in the main universe. And now in this universe, he's sort of done the same thing. It's really cool. Except the difference is that he's still Jim Hammond here. You know, the Vision is sort of in the main Marvel continuity. They took Wonder Man's brain patterns to create a new intelligence within a robot body. But in this, Jim Hammond just has decades upon decades to sort of live and grow. And it's cool. It's really cool. I think that Phil Noto is always a nice artist to have fill in. I think Juan Frigeri really suits this book, but Phil Noto is always a good artist. You know, there's nothing to complain about. He's got a delicate style, but if anything, that helps give a certain amount of empathy to a character that could come off as just like too static or too robotic. So he's a good fit in this. He gives, just by the way he draws it, he's got, you know, a very gentle style. I loved it. I loved it. I really did. The Ultimates has just been my favorite of the books in this universe. Every issue just sort of tells a complete story, even though there's an ongoing narrative. Very, very nice. The Ship of Theseus reference was so fitting. Yep. And I love that. That was honestly that was first done with Vision in the WandaVision TV show. And it's just such a clever addition to Vision's lore of asking, you know, if you're slowly replacing something piece by piece, when does it change, or when does it cease to be the original, or is it still the original? And you know, it's an interesting philosophical question that works so well for a character like Vision that's based on pre-existing stuff. It's really, really great addition. And I was really happy to see it rolled in a slightly different context in Ultimates. And I hope someday, honestly, they find a nice new way of referencing it in a clever way, maybe an ongoing thematic element of Vision in the mainstream Marvel universe. It should be a philosophical question that gets looked at from different angles. I would love to see Vision become a philosophical character and analyze different types of philosophy on like the nature of good, because either him or somebody like Machine Man, you know, like a synthetic character examining human philosophies, that would be very interesting to me. What does it mean to be a real person? What does it mean to be a moral person? Dennis Camp has had an incredible year. Martian Manhunter, Assorted Crisis events, Absolute Martian Manhunter, I should say, Assorted Crisis events, and the Ultimates, all top tier. Really good year as a writer. Really, really good. Yeah, they've gone in a different direction with Machine Man, and I think that they should probably like lean into that he's just become a bit of a satire on the idea of a synthetic being. Yeah. I don't know, but maybe heart. Maybe it's like meant in the story to represent heart, like empathy. Also interesting, they had Vision with feminine form in Wasp-centric issues before, and all the data files of Vision end with .hrt. Yeah, that's just a guess, like off the top of my head, that .hrt is basically meaning heart. Machine Man basically became Bender in Next Wave, Agents of Hate, by Warren Ellis and the great Stuart Immonen. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees Rite of Spring is arguably too long of a title, but it does make sense, and it has found new ways to horrify me. in this, Samantha Strong, the secret serial killer, reveals that she has always had a backup plan for the day that she would get found out. And I guess I won't quite get that far to show you every image, but what's really awful beyond how ruthless she is how she has slowly sabotaged this woman who's looking for her missing brother, who we, the reader, know Samantha killed years ago. And Samantha's pretending to be this woman's friend and, like, guide her, but she's really setting her up to always be in position to make a bad decision. For instance, in this one, the girl, like, figures out that Samantha is probably a bad guy and tries to drive away, but Samantha, like, injures an innocent worker and, like, sort of puts him in her car path. But she's desperate to get away. And she basically, like an innocent lady, kind of drives over and kills a guy. But Samantha engineered that to happen. She's so methodical and evil. I just hated how she's corrupting somebody. Sometimes we get these glimpses of how she thinks, and she, like, looked at her own parents as, like, things to be dissected and bisected. It's so crazy how dangerous she is, but how she thinks in just a very clinical manner, even though she can fake being empathetic. No, there's some big twists to it, and it definitely, there's some stuff that happens in this comic. There's still one issue to go, so I'm not going to, like, quite get towards the second or the last third, I'll say, of the book with the pages that I'm showing. But I hope that this artwork doesn't necessarily act as a deterrent to you. It's great artwork. And I think funny animals or talking animals, whatever you want to call them, are a really important element that work well in comics in general. And you don't need to be like a furry to find talking animals very easy to quickly empathize with and understand as characters. I say this because I'm also currently creating a review for my patron only of the erotic comic Omaha the Cat Dancer, which is also, a talking animal book. And then that one's more of a soap opera, but it works really well. It doesn't quite make sense to me yet why talking animals works as well as they do in comics, but they're certainly the original comics, and they continue to find new ways to use these animals, talking animals, to tell new stories. Because I don't think we've really gotten a horror comic like this before. Anthropomorphized animals have always been a stand-in for people. That's why we got Steamboat Willie and all them. It really is something that we could relate to very quickly, and sort of gives us just, like, enough distance that we can, like, look at them as just a character and not take it so literally that it instantly disturbs us or does the joke too soon or anything. There's, like, just this little dissonance that, like, helps things to be a surprise, which can work for all sorts of things in stories. They don't quite look or act just like people, but they're expressive enough that they have, like, that advantage. And yet, whatever they do, it's like, well, we know that animals don't necessarily do. I don't know. I got to think this one through a little bit more. Anyway, it's great. There's definitely something there, which, Scott McCloud talks about in his great book that you should really read if you like comics, Understanding Comics. And he talks about how when you simplify a character in sort of a cartoony way, we place ourselves onto that character subconsciously very quickly. And there is something to that. But there's something more. There's something more. Oh, cool. You pre-ordered the upcoming 80s Usagi Yojimbo book? That looks... Yeah. Anthropomorphized comics are part of our comics history. But this book is incredible, folks. It is so disturbing. This is like one of the most interesting fictional serial killer characters I have ever seen. She's so good at fooling people, but you can always tell that she's doing something, like planning for the future or thinking in a different way than other people. I'm turning into a furry. Oh, Black Sad is one of my favorites. The art in that is incredible. There were two Energon universe books this week, Transformers and G.I. Joe. I'm primed to like this stuff. I grew up really being a fan of Transformers and G.I. Joe toys. And I liked the cartoons. I liked them quite a bit. But I also fell off from following both of those as I grew up. Both continued to have, new toys, new cartoons and stuff. I didn't follow most of them. But when Skybound got the Energon universe and they were sort of like starting from scratch, I go, well, this could be a good jumping on point for me to get into, like, a property that I just still have nostalgic love for. The writers and artists that they were hiring were what excited me, and I have not been let down at all. The Dreadnought War ultimately is the story of how this biker mercenary gang starts working for Cobra. Like, why initially they're trying to kill Cobra Commander, and he turns them. That's a pretty entertaining arc to go on. There's also some great surprises in this book, by the way. Look at how cool this is with Cobra Commander having a chainsaw arm. That's just fun. But this is the first reveal to all the characters except Clutch that one of these mystery robots that everybody in both factions, Cobra and G.I. Joe, are kind of scared of and wary of and, don't trust. Because the only one they really know about is Starscream. And so this is obviously a huge advantage for G.I. Joe, having this huge robot. But Duke specifically does not know about factions or anything like that. He just knows that a transforming robot killed one of his best friends, and he's been on a mission to hunt them down. So Clutch is one of Duke's best friends also, but he considers Clutch having betrayed him. So, like, after this whole battle is over, Duke doesn't even listen to Clutch try to explain himself. He just knocks him out. I'm excited to see where it goes. And that's just one thing. Most of this, though, the Dreadnoughts, we've got like Zarana and Xandar, brother and sister, running this group. We got the introduction of Road Pig, who's a really funny and dangerous, humongous, muscle-bound new guy for them. But what about Zartan? Zartan has always been the leader of the Dreadnoughts. There is a twist at the end of this book that Zartan has been part of the story since the very beginning, and it's fantastic. It recontextualizes everything we've been told thus far, and I can't wait to see the fallout now that we, the reader, know something that the characters don't know. And that's good writing, folks, is always trying to be, as a writer, a little ahead of your audience, but not so far ahead or so far behind that you either lose the audience or the audience already knows what's coming. That's a very tough path to go down as a writer, to like just be a little ahead of the reader, and then they come across that and they go, oh my God, that makes some things click that I've already read and I didn't even realize it was being set up for me. That's good writing, in my opinion. So I think Joshua Williamson has done a great job with what he's done with Zartan. Tom Riley, yes, I totally agree. Tom Riley, I wasn't that familiar with before, but I love his art. And it's just so cool to see a top-tier artist on G.I. Joe, because I just have so much love for these ideas. I didn't think I could get into this because I've very specifically fell in love very early on in my comics reading career, I just mean history, of the Larry Hama G.I. Joe, the comic. That was what I loved the most. I liked the toys, I kind of liked the cartoon. The thing I loved the most was the original comic, which is still going on and I love. But I was like, can I take... I was way more open to a new version of Transformers. Even though I love Transformers, I was way more open to a new take on that. Just like I would be with, like, say, Ninja Turtles. I don't... Or Batman. There are some characters I don't mind having a very different take on. But G.I. Joe, I knew I really loved this one version. Would I like a version where they're interacting with Transformers here and there? And there's a little more sci-fi? But I do. Oh, okay. I'll try to remember that, Chrissy. You're right, because I am putting down some notes, folks, to make some writing for comics classes. I taught that for several semesters at a writing institute, writing for comics, and I'm going to make some videos that would be sort of available for like purchase through Patreon. Yeah, you would worry potentially that it could confuse the reader having two G.I. Joes come out at once that are separate universes. But I think that they've done a good enough job of making it clear that, like, this is the original one that's still going, and this is the one that shares a universe with Transformers. And the thing I liked about this Transformers was, first of all, it's been fun seeing Dan Mora on art. I think he's doing a really nice job. It hurts in some ways that we only get him for 6 issues because he's really doing a good job. But clearly Skybound is hiring top tier talent, and not just for like 1 issue or 2 issues. They're signing them for a long period. So I think Dan Mora's 6 issues is just enough time to get the next long-term artist a head start. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, in this, Megatron's losing it a little bit. Shades of what happened with Galvatron in the cartoon, which Kirkman grew up with and is influenced by. But they do some cool stuff in this too. One of the ongoing characters in this has been Miles Mayhem, who's working for the U.S. government to develop them transforming technology. But we finally got his true colors. He's the bad guy from the Mask toys and cartoons, and he puts on this. He's in handcuffs. He triggers something, and he's all of a sudden got a mask that shoots acid. And unlike the cartoon, he melts people. Like, this is way more hardcore. Look, he melts this one guy and kicks his head off. Whoa, that's hardcore. I never thought I'd see something like that in Transformers. He summons a helicopter. And of course, it can get away because it can transform into a jet. The idea of incorporating the Mask stuff into the mythology of Transformers feels very organic here. And it really just works way better. And I wasn't too into Mask, I will admit. I just didn't... You can't follow every toy or cartoon growing up. So that was a little bit of a blind spot for me. But it is fitting so well. Miles Mayhem is dangerous, and I kind of like it. Kirkman continues to develop this sort of melodrama with characters, like an organic evolution. In this, he has... Soundwave has been captured. He's a bad guy. He's been captured by the Autobots. And he talks to Thundercracker, who just changed sides. And Thundercracker's like, one day, Soundwave, the Decepticons are going to do something so awful to you or go too far, and you're going to see why I changed allegiances. He's like, I these are my brothers, you're my brother, but you're going to see. And we do see Soundwave remembering how one time, I think it was Starscream, had just like refused to repair one of Soundwave's cassettes. So there's it's just an interesting character beat. I don't really expect Soundwave to switch allegiances, but it's interesting to see them actually contemplate the reasons they do things instead of just being a bad guy because they're a bad guy. There's a little more to it. They're at least contemplating these things. That's a good page. That's a good page that helps give these characters enough sort of emotional resonance that I can relate to them as characters on the page instead of them just being props for like bad guy, good guy, bang, bang, bang. And they do some nice little changes with things. They upgrade RC. She's now the Magnus, which is basically sort of like the number 2 position for Autobots, the one that's like sort of their military leader. That's really cool to see her get like this huge upgrade. She's an important character and one of the best ideas that like the movie introduced. There's also characters that get taken out in this in brutal fashion, but I don't want to show you. I don't want to show you. Yeah, I would say you're right. Like the best stuff for Kirkman tends to be world building and an actual character arc. The dialogue itself can sometimes be the weak point unless he's leaning into his great sense of humor. But anyway, I think he's balancing things very, very well in Transformers. I adored the Daniel Warren Johnson run. Fortunately, this doesn't feel, it feels a little different, but it doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like a step down. It just feels a little bit different. It's still very enjoyable. And Kirkman's leaning into the things he does well. Twists and turns that still feel like they belong. Did you have several of them? I've seen them at the stores, like, like vintage toy stores. And I go, boy, that does look like fun. But that's the last thing I need to do is get into like another collection or something, The Magnus doesn't make sense as a title. Ultra should be the title. But that, I think, but it follows the naming of the convention that was established with Optimus Prime, because his name is Optimus and he's part of the leadership is the Primes. It's the last name. So Ultra Magnus is the title, just like Prime is a title. So I feel like it does play fair. This is the second Ninja Turtles issue by the new creative team, Gene Lun Yang and Freddie Williams. And honestly, if anything, I like this even more than the first issue from their run. There's this new bad guy, Ujigami, who is a super dangerous ninja who's going after the same enemies as the turtles, but he's killing them and he won't hurt the turtles. Well, that's because we, the audience, know that it's actually an ally of the turtles, but the turtles don't know that. It's an interesting development, seeing them like try to understand where this new enemy is even coming from. And it forces them into an uncomfortable position where they're trying to defend their enemies, because the turtles have a very, very rigid code of Bushido, essentially. They're called ninjas, but they operate like samurai, if we're being honest. Like, I think that like their master Splinter has taught them a code of Bushido that much more closely mirrors the samurai code than a ninja code, because they're not really assassins. You know what I mean? They're protectors, and they take the moral choice every time. Ninja sounds cooler. They've got the ninja weapons. I'm fine with it. But I wonder, what would that be like? Teenage Mutant Samurai Turtles. That works about as well. That might have worked. Really good cover, I agree. Who did that? Is that Freddie Williams? That is Freddie Williams II. Yeah. I wonder if they'll have Freddie pop up on Red Letter Media anytime soon. He's one of their friends. And now he's got something to promote. So I feel like it's possible that he could show up on that. I like that this puts the turtles into a moral dilemma, that they are protecting their enemies. Specifically in this, they decide that they originally had each of the 4 turtles. They didn't know who would be attacked. So each of them were defending different enemies. Okay. They even had Casey Jones roped in and April O'Neil roped in. So they're like looking out over 6 different enemies, but they're like, you know what? But our forces are stretched too thin. Let's defend our biggest enemy, the biggest target. That's their big choice, which I think makes a certain type of sense. And they go to defend the Foot Clan, which is currently being led by the Shredder's daughter, Karai. I love how she doesn't even ever look at them. She knows that they snuck in and addresses them without looking at them. She calls in her henchmen to deal with them without ever looking at them. And while they fight, she just eats and walks away. And I like that the villain is like, I'm above you. No offense. I can't deal with you kids. I kind of like that. There's some nice character beats in this. There really are. The way Donatello reacts to dealing with Bebop and Rocksteady, because in this continuity, they once killed him for a little while. Donatello got revived, but his shell was totally cracked and broken and had to be replaced with a metal shell. So he does hesitate for just a moment when he faces them. And I'm like, that's nice to see that acknowledged and see that character act so specifically. I like that. Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. They do go up against Ujigami. And by the way, even that name, I wanted to look that up. I go, Ujigami. I go, Gami is definitely like just a pronunciation of Kami, which is a deity. So I knew that much, but I was like, but the Uji part. Well, you go back and you realize that the Ujigami is basically a deity that was thought of protecting a specific people within a place. It was like a protector of a culture, like in a town. And the oldest Shinto shrine in Japan that exists, it's a UNESCO World Culture Heritage Site, is in Kyoto, and it's an Ujigami shrine. So Ujigami has quite a bit of interesting history in Japan, and I like that Jinlin Yang looked into that, and there's a very specific reason for that. No update on whether Rick Veitch's TMNT, whether they're going to be reprinting that or not. They're in talks, but no specific updates yet. So, yeah, anyway, Ujigami is a great new enemy. Maybe you can guess who it is without me. Like, maybe you can read between the lines. This issue 1 did reveal to us, the reader, who it is. This one goes into more detail. The Turtles haven't figured that out yet, which is, again, that thing of the writer is a little ahead of the characters, was originally a little ahead of us, the reader, but isn't so far ahead that it's lost us. So again, balancing how much people need to know and when. This is a reveal that'll happen way sooner than some of the stuff I was talking about in, like, with Zartan and G.I. Joe, but it's a similar idea of figuring out when to reveal certain twists and have it be organic and play fair and have it mean something, but also not come out of nowhere, come too soon that it doesn't mean anything. It's really nice. It's really, really nice. I liked it. Yeah, I liked issue 2, which is issue 14 overall, more than I even liked the last one. It's a really good escalation of things. As long as I'm sort of talking about Japanese elements within American comics, I think it makes sense to next talk about Psi-Dimensional Rivals, which is Peach Momoko's exploration of her version of Psylocke, which was originally introduced in the Demon Days books that she did. But what happens here is, she goes around a version of Japan that actually has mutants and kami and oni and things like that, and she essentially just gets pushed on a quest to find a special stone And if we know our Marvel history, we know that it is one of the Infinity Stones, which is cool. Hey, look who's here. Peach rules. I have a story, says Jim Mafood, in issue 4. Going to be real fun. Yes, I was just getting to that. What's cool about this is it's all Peach. It's her idea. But her idea was to have Psy, her version of Psylocke, get thrown by this lady to look for an Infinity Stone, gets thrown into different dimensions. And when it goes into a different dimension, a new artist writer takes over. So it actually looks like she's in a different setting, a different place. We've got this stuff by Eben Coelho, who, definitely has a really cool manga sensibility. I loved his work when he was on Fantastic Four with Ryan North. But this really suits Eben's style. It's really just a fun, mostly silent clash with the Hand, Marvel's ninjas. Almost all black and white, minus Psy's blade. And we also get a version of Psylocke going into Edo-era Japan in a story written and drawn by Stan Sakai of Usagi Yojimbo fame. And he knows his history, so it works really well. The mythology and like the setting feels very, very authentic. He may draw in a cartoony manner, but boy, is it consistent. It's a beautiful, beautiful conceit to have the character go into these other dimensions and have the look and the feel of that story change, but it's all one story. It's not an anthology. Like, this is one person's take on Psylocke. This is another person's take on Psylocke. This is the same character. It's just that each person is able to tell a portion of that story in order. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. A couple of these pages, by the way, by Peach are especially good. Maybe it's because she only had to draw, a few of the pages, not all of the pages. I think Jim's given some small updates on Arachnid Enforcer. What do you call it? You can speak up if you're here, Jim, but I believe the late pledges shut off by the end of this month, January, and that means he'll know exactly how many he needs to have printed, and he's just been working hard to find the best printer. Prices have radically changed in the last year for printing comics. So a lot of people doing crowdfunded comics have to very carefully look into that to make sure that they can do it at the scale that they're doing at. The purple-haired girl with Beast. Her name is Galactico. So I think that's a completely original character. I'm pretty sure she's just a cosmic character. All I can say is that if you look at the purple color and the way the horns essentially here on her headgear go, it's a little bit of a riff on Galactus, but a more human version. I think that this is a really, really fun idea with excellent execution. She's Galactus, but she's got more humanity than Galactus. What about the Adam Warren character? Which one? I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, a little bit of a riff on some of the cosmic mythology, but finding a way to still bring it down to the human level for now. Although, keep in mind, the conceit is Galactica is having Psy find an Infinity Stone, the 7th Infinity Stone. So that could change things by the very end. For quick reviews, I'll just say, because look, there's so many books that I read this week. This cover for Radiant Black, I really liked. I really like this cover. This is the 5th anniversary of Radiant Black, apparently. They say that at the back. And I like Radiant Black quite a bit. There's another new Marshall's Business School in the back, so that's always fun and funny. I was flattered to get to do one of those. Look, just good superhero action combined with all sorts of melodrama. In the story right now, there are 30-some people that are duplicates of existing people. They came from an alternate timeline. And there are government authorities hunting them down, and there are protesters. I don't think I have to read between the lines too much here to understand that it's a very loose analogy for what's happening in our own world, but it's happening in a sci-fi way, so that there's like a distance to it that helps it not hurt as much, because it's like still fictional. It's talking about something real from the human side, but it is interesting that there's also some guest artists in this issue, I will mention. It's fun. I wish that there was a little more action personally. That's just me. I wish there was a little more of that and a little less of the melodrama, but it's fun. I love the cover, though. That's just classic. It's really cool. Yeah, a few survivors, a very few. Oh, yeah, here's Jim's response to Arachnid Enforcer. Getting proofs from various printers in February and March, shipping and fulfillment in late April, early May. Well, we know that he followed through great on the first one. Savage Vigilante Street. Savage Street Vigilante. I'm saying it out of order, but yeah, doing another one. Blood and Thunder. I like this issue more than a couple that I've read recently. Well, not a couple, but I was getting frustrated because the thunder in Blood and Thunder is a gun that's an AI. And I was getting frustrated because it didn't want to fight. And I'm like, I get that as a plot point. That's interesting. Here it is talking to a pregnant robot, by the way. Crazy ideas, crazy sci-fi ideas in this. And I was like, okay, interesting idea. A gun that doesn't really want to hurt or kill. That's interesting. But it was also very annoying at first because it was standing in the way of the main character's progress. And I was like literally irritated by it. But fortunately, something in the story happens that forces Thunder to embrace what it is. And, you can have these regrets, but you are what you are. And if you're a hammer, you're going to solve problems like everything's a nail, but that's what you are. And I kind of like that. I also like seeing our hero being forced to team up with the monster that she was originally hired to take down as a bounty hunter. There's some great, really grisly action in here. Oh my God. This monster is just utterly ruthless when it fights. So anyway, I love the art. I was amused at some of the gags in this. I didn't expect the fight to get this bloody, like when he's just like throwing two people into each other and they're just getting hit with such impact that they're bursting apart. I didn't expect that. It's so fun. It's so fun. Anyway, huge enjoyment this issue, which is already issue 9. That is almost a year's worth of run. That's amazing. I think that Lucky Devil 6 might have come out a few weeks ago and it was just sold out at my store, so I was only just getting it. One thing I just want to say about this is the art in it is fantastic. And we know that the artist, Ryan Brown, had like a stroke, which delayed the book. But I don't feel that there's any hiccup in his storytelling or detail or character design. And that just makes me so happy. That's talking about it, I know, on a meta level. I will say that the story continues to progress and it makes me like very nervous right now because the characters are reaching a point of no return where they're sort of becoming corrupted and I worry about them. yeah, a robot that got pregnant by a human. Blood and Thunder has some crazy sci-fi ideas, and that's just like sort of a background idea. Anyway, it is good. And the latest issue of G.I. Joe was fun. I guess next issue is going to introduce 2 brand new characters, because Larry, who writes this book, was thinking like, and he has done this before, by the way, where he's created original characters because he just feels that the story needs them and the toy doesn't exist. He's going to create one that's a drone pilot, which makes sense. I mean, so much modern warfare is done by drones. How do you have to create one? And I'm forgetting what the other one was. There's another, it was something like a super long range sniper, like slightly different than what the existing snipers do. You probably could have repurposed somebody like Low Light for that if you had to, but it's cool. It's cool. Cobra Commander's son was one of my favorites. So was Quinn the Mercenary, Dr. Venom. There were some great original characters over the years in G.I. Joe. The White Clown. Anyway, really good books this week. But what's the book of the week? The book of the week is probably going to have to go back to like what I was starting with. And I think the most satisfying one is going to be one of these 2. I think that I have to give my choice for book of the week to Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, issue 5, Rite of Spring, issue 5. Yeah, that'll be my pick for book of the week. If you could only get one book, this is the one I recommend the most. But strong recommendations for the following. Ultimates, KO, G.I. Joe 17, just for the twist at the end. Great twist. Really, really fantastically executed. And also for the potential that it has, Psy. But I liked everything I read this week, more or less. I don't want to like rank it because I don't want to like be rude to anything, but I did like everything. Hopefully that gives you my strongest recommendations. I'm going to doodle a little because I've got some more stuff to talk about. One thing I wanted to talk about was something I see as a potential problem for comics. Okay. I have had slight reservations for a while about a growing interest in speculation. Now, in some ways, I'm not against speculation because I think it's I do think it's a legit way to enjoy the medium. And I think that there will always be a portion of readers who also enjoy buying key issues, getting better versions of like their favorite issues. And I think that that's all very valid. But what I get nervous about is when there is too much emphasis by the overall industry. I'm talking publishers, creators, stores, and we're bringing in people for the wrong reasons. Like if you're bringing them in just to invest, they're not going to stay forever. They're just not. We've seen that hurt the industry a few times in the past. A small example could be blind bags, which personally I do find fun, but I worry about it emphasizing the wrong things long term. But I'm not talking about blind bags today. What I saw was that on eBay, I saw copies of Absolute Batman #1 first print raw for sale for some really high prices. I saw sold. I don't know how well you can really see what's on my phone. These are sold versions. $239, $208, $202. These are all just first printings of Absolute Batman #1. Which, on one sense, like I get, and I love to see how popular that is, because it's a legit great book that I really enjoy. But what I sort of am seeing hints of is that people are speculating that I don't think are long-term fans, because I don't think too many long-time comic readers would look at those prices and think that that's reasonable, because it's had 10 printings. That is a lot. There are a lot of copies of Absolute Batman out there. And the first one isn't necessarily going to be the most rare one anymore. Yeah, it's the first, but it's probably also the biggest print run out of 10, which means long-term, those prices are going to drop. They just are. I would say drop by a lot. So I worry that, like, there are signs of speculators that don't necessarily fully know what they're investing in. And the problem with that is just that they will at some point realize that, and they'll all sort of try to sell their stuff around the same time. There's going to be this purge of a lot of the same stuff. And that's going to devalue things, and it's going to like reduce how many people are buying books. Because right now we may have people buying books that aren't really there to be long-term readers. That's bad for the industry. Like, we've seen that happen a bunch of times before. So it's not a bad thing to invest in some comics and to speculate and get nice versions. That's not the bad part. The dangerous part is when we cater to the idea of these comics are great and they should be an investment. You know, we're seeing things like in just a pair of months, well, not a pair of months, but like just in less than 5 months, we saw 2 brand new records for the highest amount that's ever been paid for a comic. And it's like, yes, that comic is a part of history and stuff, right? I get why Superman 1 and Action Comics 1 sold for millions. On one level, I get why they sold. But what it tells people that haven't been reading comics for long is that, oh, these comics can go for millions. Well, slow down. Most of us will never hold a copy of that comic. That's how rare it is. You know, there's more out there than you think, but there's less than like we're likely to easily encounter. So I just see a few trends in sales, and the one that, like, seeing Absolute Batman #1 from not even quite a year and a half ago, a year and a quarter, go for over $200. Not even slabbed or anything, just like we're talking raw, go for over $200. I go, that's high. That's really, really high. I have some concerns that there are speculators coming in that could be easy to vanish overnight, and that would really hurt the industry. So that was an interesting number that a series of numbers that I saw shared this week. I was like, ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot for what that is. Don't get me wrong, it should be worth like something good, but if it went for like $50 or $60, I'd go, oh yeah, you know, like a comic that new with 10 printings, if it was going for $50 or $60, I go, wow, that's quite a profit for somebody to potentially make. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting more nervous than I should be, to be honest. Like, but it's because I've gone through, you know, that 90s bust where it was weird. Like, one day you're seeing comics in culture everywhere and you're seeing more and more new books, and then almost overnight there's like half the titles, you know? We don't sell motorcycles, so the answer would be 0. Thoughts on Cyberforce? I recently started reading the 2010 reboot. Oh, I never read that version. I only read the very original version. Anyway, just something I was thinking about. I could be overreacting, but it makes me a little nervous. And I think that we need to, where we can, emphasize the story and the art, like emphasize that that's why people, at least initially, are going to get into this. And that, like, the collectible stuff you really need to educate yourself on, because there is a way to invest in comics, but you need to understand how things go up and down and why, what factors are in. It would just be like, it would be dumb to get into the stock market without ever learning about the stock market. It would be really dumb to do that. So it's the same thing. If you come across, like an acquaintance or a friend that's like, I'm thinking of getting this to flip it, talk to them. Just don't accuse them or make them feel bad, because, we want to make comics inviting. And it's just that, like, you go like, what makes you think that that's going to be worth something? And when are you thinking of, like, how soon are you thinking of selling it? Like, you like actually turned it into a conversation and have them think, like, for themselves, think their process through. And they may come to the conclusion that, oh, this might be something I need to maybe slow down on or research a little bit more. Just an idea. So I went straight to comic speculation. I meant to talk about some Twitter stuff for me first. Huh? I don't get if somebody was making a joke, like, or if they really liked ice. That was weird. Anyway, oh man. I posted something to Twitter, and boy, does it remind me how much I really don't like that site. I use it to promote, the show, and then I try to engage by every once in a while posting comics trivia or boosting, like, like retweeting some interesting art, right? Like, that's what I think I'm doing. Well, I saw a bunch of posts where people were noticing that the statue from the 2005 Fantastic Four movie, there's a statue of Doctor Doom. And I saw some people saying, I don't think that really looks like the actor. And so I made my own post, and I said, some people are saying that they don't think that it looks like it. I don't know the exact words I use, but I talk about how it doesn't necessarily look like Julian McMahon. And I thought it would be interesting to share the trivia that Robert Downey Jr., who is playing Doctor Doom in Doomsday this year, not only auditioned for that role back in like 2004, he was attached to that movie when Christopher Columbus was attached as the director for about a year-long period. So they were developing the movie. They hadn't, like, signed him, but when you're attached, it's like you're saying that, like, you'll probably do it contingent on various elements. Kevin Feige was a producer on it back then, but he was a lower producer. He wanted Robert Downey Jr. Some of the other people didn't want Robert Downey Jr. because he was only a few years out of, like, jail. He'd had some serious drug issues. It was going to be hard to get insurance on him. But he was attached to that movie as Doctor Doom. Let me acknowledge this real quick. Absolute Batman is definitely overinflated. 10 printings, though, yeah, reminds me of the 90s, but reminds me of Spider-Man Obama cover. People bought them up. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. I get it. So anyway, I just said something in the tweet, like, I meant it to be trivia. Hey, guess what? Robert Downey Jr. was attached to play Doctor Doom in the past. And, maybe they even started developing, like, this prop, which is only on screen for all of, like, 2 or 3 seconds. Maybe they developed that prop in a more generic sort of fashion when they thought they might be moving forward with Robert Downey Jr. Everybody is like, it's gone viral, I would say, because it's had, like, been a day and it's had over 1 million impressions, well over 1 million. and people were just like coming at me going like, this guy is like trying to make, Robert Downey Jr. like retroactively that like Marvel had this plan, or that like, that it's a good idea to cast Robert Downey Jr. I'm like, I have not tried to respond because there's too many responses. And I'm like, oh my God, I guess I should have been more clear. I was trying to share a piece of trivia. Guess what? Robert Downey Jr. at one point was like, the presumptive Doctor Doom. And now 20 years later, it's actually happening. Interesting. People are like, how can you do this after Julian McMahon just died last year? And I'm like, I wasn't trying to disrespect. I'm just saying this to you guys, my audience. I'm not going to try to defend myself on Twitter because it's a hellhole. But I'm like, I'm not trying to attack or disrespect Julian McMahon. I thought he did a fine job. I was only trying to share a piece of trivia that I thought was interesting. Robert Downey Jr. was at one point thought to potentially be the Doctor Doom there. And I do think that they could have developed that prop. I don't think it's a perfect likeness of Robert Downey Jr. either, but I don't think it looks like Julian McMahon. I don't think it does. Twitter is all bots, I swear. It might be bots. It might. No, Chris Columbus, the guy that directed the first two Harry Potter movies, some stuff for what else did he do? I feel like he did some John Hughes movies. Anyway, like I said, it's like just a small tweet. I thought that it was just interesting trivia, but people are reading too much into it. Like reading like, I want Robert Downey Jr. to be Doctor Doom, or I want to give Marvel credit, and lots of people saying like, you're blind, it doesn't look anything like him. And I'm like, that's a matter of opinion. I thought it did. I still think it does. I showed it to Chrissy without any context. I just said, hey, who do you think this looks like? And she's like, I don't know. I can't think of anyone. I was like, well, do you think it looks at all like Robert Downey Jr.? And she's like, yeah, it does. I go, okay. And it's just like a little experiment. Yeah, I just don't enjoy Twitter at all. I really don't. I haven't for years. The stuff that it's just so aggressive and mean over there. I don't like Twitter. But sometimes when you mention your show, it takes off and you get a bunch of views. So, yeah. There's a Popeye comic that's been coming out in sort of an Americanized manga style. I think it's called I Lie. I haven't read it. What else? Oh, since I did my last live stream with you folks, I've released episodes on this channel with Jim of Trash Movie Bonanza, and on the Comic Tropes channel, I released an episode about Jack Kirby, and I'm very proud and happy with both of them. I think that each of them has their charms. The movie Jim and I decided to look at for the last Trash Movie Bonanza, classic bad movie. It's called Miami Connection. Jim has a bunch of great trivia about it throughout the episode. If you don't know anything about it, he drops lots of really interesting facts about it because he's watched all sorts of documentaries. He's very into the movie. And I found that really entertaining. What's cool about it is it's bad in the sense that it's like a vanity project. If you've ever seen a movie by Neil Breen, or if you've seen Tommy Wiseau's The Room, those are movies meant to make that somebody funded themselves to make themselves look really, really cool and awesome. And that was the case for Miami Connection. It was by a Taekwondo master, and he hired all of his students to play the roles, like the good guys and bad guys. It's got some hilarious, super catchy music. It's got a lot of really charming elements to it. It's got weird tonal shifts. It's got elements of the movie that are just a total waste of everybody's time. Like, but that's what's entertaining about it. It's you're like, why am I watching this really long scene of a bunch of friends just eating dinner? I still got to watch the Vice documentary because Jim made that sound really entertaining. Dude, Friends Forever and Against the Ninja are such bangers of songs. Let's see. I think Red Letter Media call those blank tank top movies. I don't remember them saying that, but it sounds right. Because there's another one that like just some guy made as a movie. He's got like a mustache. He's kind of skinny and older, but he's like a country star and a great fighter, and he romances all these beautiful women. And I think he does run around in a tank top. Dude, Miami Connection, I think our conversation about it is very entertaining. I hope you guys consider watching it. And I released that episode on Jack Kirby, and I was really happy that it did pretty well. I mean, it's still doing pretty well. So I was happy because that took a long time to make, longer than I expected. I should have anticipated some of it, but I decided to look at Jack Kirby through the lens of the times his art was not just erased or inked differently, but literally changed. Like an editor came in and had another artist redraw a face or change how it was laid out. And I thought that was a really interesting element of his career that kept happening without like his input or anything. They just kept sort of changing stuff, both at Marvel and DC. And I had a bunch of images from like it happening on his DC work. And then I realized that it just took a really long time to find images representing what I wanted to say in my essay. Because it's almost lost media. It's not lost because obviously it does exist thanks to a bunch of like, fans and journalists and stuff, but it is kind of obscure, a lot of it. It's relatively obscure, and it just took a lot longer to put together than I ever would have guessed. So it was a very time-consuming episode. But I mean, I'm glad. I was proud of what I did. It was just that I drastically underestimated how hard it was going to be for me to find all the images that I needed. And I thought that I had a lot, and then I realized that I didn't really have as many as I thought I did, in a way, for like how much I wanted to talk about it. So it was a very time-consuming episode. But, apparently worth it. I really thought that I would release it and it would only get, like 20 to 30,000 views, and I would feel like really dopey about how much time I spent on it. Fortunately, it's more than that. I haven't looked at it in a day, but it was doing well. It was doing well for its first day, so I felt good about it. And I hope you'll consider watching it. I really do think it's an interesting aspect of Kirby's career. The last time I was checking on it, it was getting to the point where, there's always a bunch of dedicated people that watch my videos that I'm always grateful for, and some really nice supportive comments or an interesting critique sometimes, but like done in a really nice way of like saying, hey, you could have also mentioned this, and I'm like, wish I had, things like that. But it's sort of getting to the point where there's a bunch of people that are like, I don't like Jack Kirby's style, and I think that the editors did the right thing. And I'm going, I don't want to fight you, but there's still a good way that the editor can do that by like consulting with Kirby, saying, look, we want you, but are you okay working with, say, this inker or that inker to, get this on model? It's like, why hire an artist, have him do all this work, and then hire another artist to rework it all? It feels to me like wasted time, and to not ask, sort of disrespectful. I understand the deadlines. I do. So maybe you can't get it right the first one or two times, but then you have a conversation for the future going like, this is what I want you to do. It's okay. It's a fair criticism. that people have of saying like, I don't like how that looks. That's fair. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Okay. I'm not trying to make you say, I love Jack Kirby's art. I would hope you can slowly understand what the appeal is, even though it isn't perfect. But that wasn't my main goal with this one. It was just to talk about a very prominent figure who was not treated very well, in my opinion. But it was consistent, and it was just sort of endemic of the industry. And I think it's worth talking about so that potentially people go, you know what? Let me talk to, I'm an editor or I'm a publisher. Let me talk to this artist and see if we can get on the same page before I just change something. I wasn't trying to make anybody angry, but it is frustrating. It is frustrating how he was treated. I get why Romita inked Gil Kane after watching the video. If they think Jack or Buscema faces are too much, Gil must have been too intense. Right. Gil had that very particular way of like drawing a low angle shot like this and having like a very prominent set of nostrils. But I like Gil Kane's art quite a bit too. At the same time, you know what? It took me a while as a comics fan to appreciate Jack Kirby. I didn't initially like him, and at some point something just changed and clicked, and I went, oh, I see what he's doing here, and it's so dynamic and engaging. And if you want to say, yeah, but I don't like how similar his faces look or his women aren't pretty enough, I go, I hear you. But I'll tell you that I think that that's also an issue that every comic book artist will have working on a monthly basis, making faces look different. I mean, at its height, I would say Jack could sometimes do almost like the equivalent of like 3 comics a month. Sometimes he was doing very light layouts. Sometimes he was doing short stories for like 1 or 2. He put a lot of stuff out. Here's a professional with an opinion. Thank you, EJ. I have had artworks altered. I didn't find out until I see the books. I am no Kirby, but it seems like it's happening a lot. I would just say, especially today, we are now in an electronic world where we can communicate with each other much faster. So that should theoretically give us a little more time to ask for adjustments, especially because we can now do adjustments like an artist can themselves, maybe digitally, or maybe do a patch. But I think that generally an artist would want to, they're getting paid. They understand that sometimes corrections are part of that process, okay? Corrections have always been part of that process. That's understandable. But we want to do it ourselves because it's our name, which is our brand, which is our job. And you could give it to anybody and have it not look good in your opinion. And that hurts your ability to get more work. It hurts your ability to connect with your readers and tell the story your way. So I just hope that some of those thoughts are taken into account by writers and editors and other collaborators. And that we as readers can at least go, well, that's tough. Maybe I can, show a little more empathy if an artist that I like isn't always putting something out that I love. Like maybe there's other extenuating circumstances or reasons why this isn't looking perfect. Who knows? Just some thoughts. I've also been hearing about similar situations from artist friends. That hurts a little to hear. I just want people to have a shot at the very least of doing the edits themselves, because we have the ability to correct things faster than we used to and communicate faster. They used to basically have no choice but to send all the artwork in by mail or drop it off in person, and we've got a deadline. It's tricky. Do I think Gendy Tartovsky was a Jack Kirby fan? I don't know a whole lot about Gendy Tartakovsky, but I think that there's a chance because there's something sort of blocky and dynamic about Gendy's style. I would imagine that Tartakovsky was probably influenced by more animators and film directors than comics, but maybe. I've seen early Frank Miller artwork from when he was going in to get critiques from Neil Adams, and some of it was pretty rough. But I'll tell you, his 80s stuff on Daredevil, that's my jam, man. There's a little bit of roughness to it, but it really can suit the story. I love some of that. Oh, Minneapolis. Yeah, things are going pretty crazy down there. My episode that I'm making for my patrons, which is about Omaha the Cat Dancer, I won't be releasing that to the general public, I don't think, because it's just too much explicit nudity. It's designed to be an exclusive for my supporters. But that was set in a fictional version of Minneapolis. Mipple City, they call it. Really interesting version of it. I could understand that. That would make sense to me because Alex Toth crossed over so much from comics and animation. But Jack Kirby did a lot more animation than I think people sometimes remember. It's just that a lot of his shows were kind of like one season type shows, like Centurions and that, like who remembers Centurions? Not too many people, but that was one that he helped with the designs and everything for all those characters. Just as one random example of a short-lived show. Well, I think if you compare Jack Kirby's artwork to what modern artwork generally is, there is a tremendous amount more detail. Oh, I'm getting really white there. Most artists don't draw in sort of a style influenced by Kirby in the, like say Mike Mignola does. I would guess, if I had to, that if you had a gun to Mike Mignola's head, he could probably draw more than a comic a month. But I don't know if that would make him happy. I know he likes to think things out. I'm just saying that, like, maybe with that, like, somewhat confident, blacked out, heavy ink style and big blocky structures. Maybe somebody that has really rock solid basics on human anatomy, like we'll say Sean Phillips. Maybe he could do more than one comic a month. Maybe. But I think that the average person and the average comic has a tremendous amount more detail than what comics did through the Golden, Silver, and Bronze Ages. So it's unrealistic to expect most of those people to be able to draw at a similar output. Now, here and there are exceptions that have been able to. Dan Mora these days can. And he said that when it comes to crunch time, he can basically shift to drawing digitally faster than with pencil and ink, but he prefers, analog tools. Another one that, his output is slowed a little bit now, but there was a time when he could do 2 books a month. John Romita Jr. There were times where he was doing Spider-Man and Thor at the same time. He could do it. So there are some, but you sacrifice a certain amount of detail, and the average comics reader wants more detail. So the reason why more people can't have Jack Kirby's output is because comics have evolved and the amount of detail is expected to be greater. And reference to real world cars and buildings is also expected to look more realistic. as compared to blockier and simplified. There are some people with very specific styles that can do it. I've definitely heard of that, and I would love to read it, but I haven't yet. I can't believe I started this show with a Dr. Evil impression and rap. That just came back to me that I did that. Woo, pretty silly. I guess I've talked about everything that I had on my agenda today. There was quite a bit of news. There was quite a bit of comics to review, and just some stuff that I felt like talking about behind the scenes. But I appreciate everybody being here with me and adding to the conversation. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Basically, you can do Osamu Tezuka way, where you just draw people and 100% of other things are drawn by unpaid interns. Well, I think that these days, even the manga artists that have assistants, they're compensated well. Yeah. Oh, you missed my rap? Well, good news. You can rewind and see it. If you want detail, there's always Darrow. Details Darrow, they call him on the streets. Yes, I will call him that next time. I'll go, what's up, Deets? As in details? Details Darrow? The funny thing is that in a lot of ways, Jeff can draw pretty fast. A lot of artists, I think, also take more time to consider the storytelling. I think the average comic these days is more than just, like 6 squares or something close to that. You want to really put some thought into where to have a little bit more space, how to slow down and speed up the story, where to have key details, and the thinking process behind that can take some time until you've got a lot of experience. If you tuned in to watch Ink Pulp, right? And you're watching Sean Crystal and Jim Mafood and whoever their guest is draw. They can draw very quickly, right? But a drawing is not the same as telling a story on a page where you have to consider the pacing and stuff. That takes a lot more time and thought. That's awesome, Gene. You're such a positive, good person. I get to see kitten photos somewhat regularly from 2 people these days. Jeannie, my sister, adopted 2 kittens. They're super adorable. And there was the one that I rescued from the woods in the rain. And my coworker gives me regular photos and videos, updates. And that kitten has now been named Ginger. And she is not shy at all. She absolutely loves belly rubs and playing. She loves to play, and it makes me so happy. I sometimes go is the best thing I've ever done in my life rescuing a stray kitten? Maybe that's the best thing I've ever done. I don't know. Anyway, life is good. I am hard at work on the Patreon exclusive episode, and then I'm going to roll right into, I'm pretty sure I want to do an episode on Nick Dragata, Absolute Batman. I think, there's definitely interest in that book right now, and he's somebody that I've been reading for a while because I really liked his book East of West with Jonathan Hickman, but I think it might be interesting to analyze specifically what he's doing with his artwork on Absolute Batman. I think that there'd be some interest in that. So anyway, it's funny. My coworker's dad doesn't call her Ginger. He calls her Pancita, as in little belly. Spanish for little belly. Pancita. And it's very cute to see the kitten roll onto its back and spread its legs like that. Oh, thank you. Live long and prosper. I haven't watched more than maybe 15, 20 minutes of the new Star Trek show. I wonder if it's any good. I'm sure that there's always going to be a certain amount of pushback from a certain contingency, but I also will agree that Star Trek's been inconsistent on TV ever since Paramount Plus. So we'll see. I'm going to check it out. I like Star Trek in general. Do you think you're ever going to go over the entire history of Dragata or just Batman? Well, I haven't decided yet because I would love both. Also, the Ink Pulp episode was great. Yeah, I'll give that some real thought. I have read the Elting Hill Club comic. I think it's hilarious. I think it's well drawn, and I think it is nihilistically dark as far as like a take on the comics industry, but I also won't say that it's wrong. Yeah, I like Evan Dorkin. I think he's very funny. I've got a glow in the dark milk and cheese series of figures here. Is that going to focus? Yeah. So yeah, I like Evan Dorkin. Milk and cheese. But anyway, I had a great time, folks. Take care of each other. Be kind. Do something creative for yourself. It will charge your batteries. You will feel good about yourself if you do something creative. And yeah, just watch out for each other. Take care. Keep reading comics. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Use hype points. Go support my Patreon. Bye.